Hello and welcome to Project Week. My name's Ben Drew, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm just going to go through the brief, giving an initial overview of what's going to be involved this week, and then there'll be other pre-recorded lectures or videos for you to watch that are going to go into detail into the various sections. So I'll give a quick overview of what's going to be this week's activities. So Project Week 2 is like Project Week 1. You're going to be working in teams of, and they're going to be the same teams that you were, largely the same teams that you were in Project Week 1. And while in Project Week 1 you focused on the design process, this week it's going to be more focused around engineering analysis and design. This work that you do in this project week will feed into 3 different modules. That's going to be Engineering Practice 1, and for that there's going to be a design task, solid mechanics, materials and manufacturing, and there's structures and materials going to be the focus of that task, and then there's also a piece of work that will feed into dynamics, modelling and simulation, and that's going to be involving dynamics and modelling. So for Engineering Practice 1, 10% of the module mark of Engineering Practice 1 will be around the design. If you're doing solid mechanics, materials and manufacturing, 25% of that module mark will be focused on the work you do during this activity. And in dynamics, modelling and simulation, 25% of that module mark will be focused on, will be based upon the activity that you do this week. You submit one group submission, okay? But each of those sections is marked individually, and they'll be separated from each other to feed into those module marks. In terms of the timetable, it's every day this week. We've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday following the same format every day. So there's going to be a series of pre-recorded videos. This is obviously one of them. From 9 to 11 on those 4 days, there's going to be facilitating sessions in all of the flat teaching spaces in Z Block. Okay, so I don't believe you've been assigned a specific one for your group, but so basically, when you get into the building in the morning, go to one of the flat teaching spaces. There's an email listing them, and you should be able to find a space that's been facilitated by one of the tutors. From 11 to 12, there's a break for you guys, and then from 12 till 2. That's also time for you to have lunch, and in the Z Block atrium there's also an engineers fair, employers fair for you to have a look around if you want to have a chat to any of the employers that are presenting. Okay. On Monday, Tuesday and Thursday we have a drop-in session in the computer labs in 4Z 11 and 16 for MATLAB and any other technical support you may require. And on Friday we're going to be running a competition. So at some point during this week, I believe on Tuesday, you'll get a kit from which you can build up a little electric car. And so you, based upon some of the work that you're going to be doing this week, you can use that to inform your design of the car. And then in the afternoon we're going to have a competition. The guidelines for that are going to be on Blackboard. They are on Blackboard in fact, and you can go and take a look. Yep, so on Blackboard there's a space, there's actually 3 spaces. There's the main space is in Engineering Practice 1, because most of you are doing Engineering Practice 1, and so that's the main space to be used. That space is also repeated on solid mechanics, materials and manufacturing, and also in dynamics, modelling, simulation. The reason why we've repeated those sessions those spaces is that there are some students who aren't doing Engineering Practice 1 but are doing solid mechanics, materials and manufacturing and or dynamics, modelling and simulation. And so obviously those students that don't have access to Engineering Practice 1 may have access to only 1 or 2 of those other spaces. And so we've basically created a mirror of the same sites on those 3 Blackboard sites. And that is why some of you may be receiving 3 emails for each of those things when I've made an announcement that's relevant to all the students. So on those sites there's a discussion board, okay, and that discussion board has specific sections for each of the various elements of the project. and during the week we shall be checking those discussion boards and answering any questions that you may be posting there. If you have got a question about something, it's likely that you're not the only person with that question, which is why we're using the discussion board. It'd be much better to ask the questions there rather than emailing the academic directly. Like I said, most people, well, a lot of people have similar questions. And then so Friday's activities around this card competition. Like I said, the guidelines are on Blackboard about that. Okay, so the brief, the project context. Well, this is basically around the design of a prototype vehicle that is part of the chain of delivery from online shopping and e-commerce. Okay, and it's argued that an autonomous electric vehicle, such as the concept shown in that figure there, could be a solution to increase the cost effectiveness and reduce the carbon emissions associated with the last mile delivery step of that delivery chain. Often, last mile delivery is the most costly part of that, due to the fact that you've got this, from the depot to the people that are being delivered to, it's quite dispersed and scattered. And so, if we can optimise that section of the delivery chain, then obviously that would be a good thing. Okay, and this week, your team is tasked with designing certain aspects of such a prototype vehicle, okay, to evaluate some of the key systems proposed for this vehicle. Okay, and so those sections are materials, manufacture, and structures and stress. Okay, and also in terms of its operation, we're going to look at some of the dynamics and some of the modelling. Okay, and the design, there's a certain aspect of this vehicle that's going to be the focus of the drawing you produce. Okay, so I'm not going to dive into the details of the various sections because they're going to be covered in other pre-recorded videos, so I'll just quickly skim past those. Okay, so there's structures, there's materials and manufacturing, and there's design, and then dynamics and modelling. And like I said, I'll produce a pre-recorded video focusing on that aspect of the design and modelling. Okay, now, so further details. So if you're a full-time student, the deadline for the submission is on the 28th of April, which is the week after the Easter break, at 2 o'clock by the submission point on Blackboard. So the submission point will be on Engineering Practice 1. That submission point will be repeated on Solid Mechanics, Materials and Manufacturing and DMS as well, with the same deadline. Okay, so like I said, if you're not doing Engineering Practice 1 and you're doing DMS or SM3, and then obviously one of those submission points would be where you want to submit as well. Okay, like I said, obviously if you're watching this, you found the link to the pre-recorded lecture. Okay, if you're a part-time student, then the deadline is a week later on the 5th of May at 2 o'clock. Okay, and that again on Engineering Practice 1 and on the other sites as well. I've got some frequently asked questions here that I've also put on the discussion board. What about those of you that are only taking one or two of the three modules? What should you do? Okay, so for those of you, then you have a choice of either working in a group, you've been assigned a group, or you can work individually to submit the work. If you are, so for example, if you're doing if you're retaking DMS for whatever reason, then you're working individually, then you only need to complete that section of the brief, because obviously that's the bit that will be marked and will feed into your module mark. Okay. If you are working individually, it'd be useful for me to know, so you can so I can mark so I can make sure that those marking is allocated for you. If you are the only person, or you're working as an individual, or nobody else is working with you in your group, then the marking will reflect that. Okay, in the sense that there's going to be if you're working individually, we're not expecting you to produce the same level of work as if you were working in a team of 5. And so obviously when we come to the marking, that will be accommodated for. Okay. In terms of the disparity between contributions, if you're not all contributed equally into the group, then part of the submission is that everyone must provide an individual form detailing the contribution of the members of the group. Okay, so and you can either put this together as a team. You can obviously work together and come up with the same numbers or certain numbers that you want to, or if you'd rather not confer with the team, then obviously you can just do your own spreadsheet and put that in, identifying the contribution you feel you made and what you feel your fellow members contributed to the project. And so based upon those forms, obviously the marks will, we can vary the marks, attributing appropriate marks for those members that contributed well, and obviously for those that didn't contribute, we'll obviously work out the marks that everybody should be awarded. Clearly, if you feel that you all contributed equally, then you'll all get the same mark. So in terms of the assessment, as I mentioned, this work feeds into 3 modules: Engineering Practice 1, Solid Mechanics, which is manufacturing, and the Dynamics and Modelling Simulation. Okay, and the way it's going to be submitted is going to be a poster. Okay, that's divided into 2 halves. So the full poster should be A1 sized in portrait orientation, with each half sort of A2 in landscape. Okay, so right at the top you've got your names, your student IDs, and an overview of the contributions if you've decided how that's going to be broken down. Okay, for the top half, or the half 1 of the poster, that's going to be around the structures, materials and manufacturing section. Okay, so again, for information on the specifics of what needs to be there, take a look at those sections of the work, and that content will contribute to 25% of the module mark for solid mechanics, materials and manufacturing. For the second half, the bottom half of the poster, that should be around the dynamics and modelling. Again, the details of what needs to be there is going to be in the dynamics and modelling section, and again, that work will then contribute to 25% of the module mark for dynamics modelling simulation. And then there's a separate submission, which is the technical drawing. That's going to be an A2 drawing in PDF format of your design drawn to BS 8888 standards with full dimensions. Okay, again, that details of that are available on Blackboard in the Project Week 2 content area, and that works out to be 10% of the module mark for Engineering Practice 1. So because of this way, the poster and the drawing and stuff will feed into the different modules, there's not going to be an overall mark for your submission. Like I said, each part will be marked individually, and that's how that's going to work. So the final submission of a complete poster, the technical drawing, and there are a bunch of files for dynamics and modelling that you'll also have to submit. Again, details of that will be in the dynamics and modelling section. And there's the deadline again, 28th of April at 2 PM via the submission point on Blackboard. Every submission should include the individual student. Every submission should include your individual student's contribution spreadsheet. So there'll be a separate submission point that's individual, so you log in there and you upload your contribution form. Like I said, every student needs to do this. Okay, and like I said, you can either do it as part of a group activity, so you've all got the same numbers, you all agree with each other, but there's no obligation for you to do so. If you feel that you want to do it individually without conferring with the group, then that's fine as well. Part-timers, you've got a week further to go, and on Blackboard there'll be a bunch of there'll be the marking criteria and the mark forms, so you can see how we're going to be marking. And then at the end of the document, there's just a section here where I'm just going to add. If I make revisions to the document, I'll highlight here what I've changed. So the most recent addition, the update that I've done, I fixed a minor in the flow diagram for the dynamics and modelling section, and I added the emphasis about the individual submission, the individual contribution form, just here. Okay. So, thank you very much. If you've got any questions, then please post them in the discussion board, and I hope you enjoy Project Week 2.